Just a few days ago, we had a potentially very bloody terrorist attack on U.S. soil that was thwarted by diligent police work and a good portion of sheer luck. It seems that two dedicated followers of Islam were poised to slaughter unarmed civilians as they exited a Mohammed cartoon event. Of course, this episode is eerily similar to the Charlie Hebdo attack in France just a few months back. And just as back then, our agenda-driven press corps is attacking the victim with at least as much ferocity as that they are attacking the jihadists. Back last January, news agencies were quick to point out that Charlie Hebdo was offending the Muslim residents of France. Those cartoonists should have known better. They should have been more sensitive to the Islamic community. You know, back then, when I heard that tone in the reporting, there was a familiar ring to it. It was like that girl that just got raped behind the dance club over the weekend. Just look at how she was dressed. What did she think was going to happen? Now we're hearing this twisted reasoning all over again. This time, it's about Pamela Geller, the organizer of the Texas event that was the target of the two jihadists. It isn't hard to find press releases throwing the blame on her feet for the terrorist attack. The Washington Post used words inflammatory and provocative when writing about her, and the Post was quick to quote a spokesperson from the Southern Poverty Law Center and point out that Ms. Geller is labeled as an extremist by that group. Yeah, did you see the lipstick and the makeup on that girl that got raped? She looked like a tart. The Washington Post also states, and I quote, "If the contest was intended as bait, it worked." Yep, you could smell her perfume all the way across the room. She was looking for it. Meanwhile, let's look at the LA Times article. In the very first sentence of their report on this attack, they point out that Ms. Geller is Jewish. What on earth does that have to do with anything? Could that be some kind of an anti-Semitic remark? Did they truly begin their report with something as inflammatory and provocative as the Washington Post was complaining about? Now, in all fairness, the LA Times report did indeed devote a large part of the article on details of the attack itself. They actually reported on it. Unfortunately, the direction of the article quickly turned to the grieving families of the shooters. We hear that one of the shooters was a very pleasant kid, and he spent time playing basketball with younger children, helping them to learn the game. And the other man was a devoted father and a respected businessman. And not long after that in the article, the LA Times went on to a rant against Ms. Geller and the Texas event itself. Now let me be clear. The Post may indeed be correct about Ms. Geller being controversial. But does not the fact that she and the other attendees of this event, does not the fact that they were about to become victims of jihadists, does this not give some validity to their point of view? Let's take this whole spin on Ms. Geller being the cause of the intended violence and apply this very same logic to another story in the news. And let's see if the shoe fits. How about Freddie Gray? Freddie isn't just a potential casualty. He's dead. How much time did the press spend documenting Freddie's rap sheet? How much time did the press use to suggest that Freddie's own actions, just like Pamela Geller, suggesting that Freddie's lifestyle put him in a position of jeopardy? And it's the same with Michael Brown in Ferguson and Trayvon Martin in Florida. While the press is doing their very best to demonize Pamela Geller, they downplayed anything and everything negative about these so-called victims and went out of their way to place them in a good light. So what's the difference here? Why do they choose to villainize Pamela Geller and to sanctify 3 violent young men? Isn't this a double standard in reporting? And then there's the other side of the story, and there's clearly a double standard here too. We have the aggressors, the police, and the jihadists. The press is putting the police in Baltimore in the worst light that they possibly can. And they did the same with the police in Ferguson and St. Louis. Police forces everywhere are being painted with a broad brush as evil, corrupt, and of course racist. There's no sympathy here at all. No mention of anything positive in their background. Yet the media goes out of their way to find nice things to say about 2 ISIS wannabes who were poised to kill in cold blood down in Texas. It's the same thing with Boston Marathon bomber. He's a nice boy. He liked puppies. He was just misled by his brother. He was a victim in all of this. So the question here is why? Why on earth does the press choose to put this crazy spin on their reports? I don't think the reporters are evil. Sure, they're obsessed with their own celebrity. That's a character flaw that's hard to see when you look in the mirror. But they mean well. They want things to be fair and just. Why do they tend to spin things to suggest that jihadist actions are simply provoked by the rude and thoughtless words of a woman that they don't like? Yet, on the other hand, why do they think that the police can confront epidemic violence, disrespect, and lawlessness on a daily basis in the urban community and not be on the defensive? Why is it that a woman speaking her point of view is just asking for it? Yet young thugs with a history of violence are simply heroic victims when they act out their violent ways once too often. You might ask, why does an accountant add so well? How is it that a pilot can fly an airplane? How is it that a plumber can fix a leak? Why can a surgeon heal? The answer is simple. It was what they have been trained to do. Our modern press corps is a product of our modern journalism schools. Our left-leaning news agencies are shining examples of higher education. A system that is run by tenured professors, most of whom who have accomplished absolutely nothing outside the walls of academia. They've simply read about it in a book and are now considered experts. Educators who shamelessly champion the progressive socialist line of thinking and preach that America is oppressive. The press has been brainwashed, and they're now trying to do their best to indoctrinate the proletariat for the new order of socialist rule. Just like their college professors, they think of themselves as part of the ruling elite. It is their burden to tell us how to think. Our generation is the beneficiary of a brand of freedom that is a rarity in the history of civilization. We who live in the West in the 21st century are the beneficiaries of unheard of prosperity. We seem to ignore how we got to where we are, and we seem to take it all for granted. Freedom, liberty, and justice are not going to be conquered. It seems that we will simply squander them away and allow them to vanish while we post our latest selfies on Facebook. Thanks for your time. See you soon.